This episode was brought to you by Big Moose. Find out about the 1 Million Project at bigmoosecharity.co. Pals, greetings and welcome. I am back with another episode of Everything Endurance. It's been a little bit of a break. Summertime gets busy, but we're going to have a few episodes on the bounce here. There's been a lot going on. The BTU team have been out to the jungle and back. They have been out to Kyrgyzstan for the mountain ultra and back. The spine team have carried out another amazing summer spine race. A lot of kilometers have been covered by a lot of runners, and we are going to start bringing you some of their stories over the next few weeks. We are starting today, obviously, you've seen the front cover of this episode, with the Jungle Ultra. Now, I'm going to set the scene a little bit here. For anyone who hasn't heard of the Jungle Ultra or doesn't know anything about it, you should scroll back through our past episodes. You will definitely find us talking about it in there. And we sort of can't help talking about it. It's an incredible place and an incredible experience. It was the first ever ultramarathon that I worked on as part of the team. I was out there with a couple of cameras, very naive, very green, no idea what I was in for, and all of a sudden found myself in the middle of everything that David Attenborough had told me I was going to find out there. It's just the most overwhelmingly brilliant experience, seeing the jungle, seeing the massive biodiversity and beauty of that place. You'll also, if you dig deep enough on Beyond the Ultimate YouTube, find a short video clip I recorded on a Stone Age GoPro as I was marching through the jungle on one of those days, in which I give a rather more colourful review of the place. At the time, I was chafed and bitten by insects from pretty much head to toe. I had been rained on as if a lake had fallen on my head and then boiled by the sunshine as we got into the open sections. This was a real taste of adventure for me for the first time. And if you've got the patience, I recommend digging that bit of video out as well, if only for the entertainment value. But what I'm trying to get across here is the Jungle Ultra is beautiful and it is hard work. 5 days. 5 days of running. The runners are, as with every BTU event, self-sufficient. So they're carrying all their food, all their medical supplies, all of their clothes, but also in the jungle, they are carrying hammocks. So at the end of each stage, no matter how tired and beaten up they are, they've got to build their accommodation, unpack it, hang it, get it right. And if you don't get it right, any rain that comes through overnight is going to be coming straight through into that hammock where you are trying to get some sleep. Then you've got to get up in the morning, pack it all neatly down again, and squeeze it into your bag along with all of your other kit. The admin alone makes the Jungle Ultra difficult. The terrain brings it up a step again. It's not the Mountain Ultra. We don't call it the Mountain Ultra. And if you look at it on the map, you'll see that, most of the big peaks come in around 300-400 meters. And that doesn't sound like a huge amount, maybe, if you are an ultra runner listening to this and you are not shy of training by running up and down a big hill. But this is relentless stuff. For starters, those hills are steep. These climbs are technical, and often they are swimming in sticky, slippery mud. And they are short, sharp shocks of climbs, sometimes over and over again. We're talking about deeply forested areas crisscrossed by hundreds upon hundreds of tiny tributaries, tiny streams all through the area that over the years have carved it into a corrugated effect. If you're not going up, you're probably coming down. If you're not being soaked by the rain, you're probably being boiled by the sun. If you are not covered in mud, you are probably covered in mosquito bites. It is just as well, ladies and gentlemen, that the Jungle Ultra is in such a stunningly beautiful location. So I think that's pretty much set the scene. Oh, I didn't know how colourful that description was going to be until I started going, but it's true. We are talking about probably the most beautiful place I've ever seen, and maybe, and this is just me talking, maybe the toughest environment of any of the Beyond the Ultimate races. So, we're going to talk today to a few runners that very recently made it through that course. We're going to start with Ben Harrison, who was our overall winner and also has now completed the full global race series. So, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We've also got Jemma Harding for you and Mark Reilly, our first ever, in fact, ex-professional footballer to appear on the podcast. So plenty to listen to there. But before we jump into the first of those interviews, a quick apology for Noora, who actually was the winning woman in this race. I mentioned before, summers are busy. We've been struggling to get Noora Hintsa booked in for a podcast interview. And now, unfortunately, when it's come to the point of needing to publish this, she's become ill. So we're really sorry, Noora. We know we'll talk to you again. As I said to you earlier, we're putting other podcasts together that you'll be relevant for. And we will catch up with you further down the line. For now, it just remains for me to say, get well soon. I'm sorry you're not feeling well. Now, on that note, let's jump into this. First up, we are going to talk to our winner, Ben Harrison. Good morning, then, to Ben Harrison. Ben, it is lovely to see you, pal. How are you doing?
Morning, Will. I'm fantastic, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thank you for asking. Although, this episode is very much about you and your amazing achievements. You've had a few weeks now to sort of recover and mull over the jungle. How did you feel afterwards when you got home, and how are you feeling now looking back?
Well, when I got home, that's probably bad timing because I had some pretty severe gut issues on my way
Oh,
home. So it was a 24-hour journey with quite a bit of fun to be had on that. But that aside, I was absolutely on a complete high for weeks after the jungle. So I'm just getting back down to earth now, probably a few weeks later.
well, this is good. As I said before we started recording, hopefully this will be an opportunity to get you back into that jungle bubble for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry to hear the jungle got your stomach as well. As someone who has also done the entire flight back from Cusco with some terrible jungle bug in my stomach, I really feel for you there. Just what you need when
Yeah.
you're trying to recover.
It wasn't well, what I would say is it was kind of perfect timing in that I'd finished the race, and there were a few people in the event that unfortunately had issues, during the event, and that's really bad. So I was kinda happy, to be honest, with the timing.
Fair enough, and I'm sure everyone sitting around you on the plane was as well.
Not so much, that is true.
Anyway, let's pull out of this particular nosedive immediately. So it's impossible not to mention. Not only were you sort of incredibly successful in the jungle, you've done the lot now, right? This is the entire global race series. You are a champion of champions. I mean, there's got to be a lot of pride in that, right? How are you feeling about that?
You're dead right. I am unbelievably proud, and I would say the desert, which is my first event with BTU, 2019. That was my first ultra marathon, so it feels like a really cool journey. And yeah, to cap it off with the jungle and to finish the way I did, I was bloody delighted.
Yeah, quite rightly so, pal. Quite rightly so. I forget that that desert race was your first ultra as well. I mean, what a way to start. Um, it, I know this question is unfair, Ben. I know there are lots of comebacks here along the lines of, well, everybody's different and has their own strengths and weaknesses, and each race has its own unique challenges and all that stuff. We know that. Which one did you think was hardest? Which one of the four was toughest for you, and why?
Well, for me, that's a fairly simple answer, actually. The
Oh,
desert
good.
was by far the hardest, and that's because I didn't know what I was doing. So I think, again, the journey for me was, there are many things that I learned along the way, and yeah, being in the jungle, and I think to an extent, knowing what I was doing with all the different elements of an ultra, it felt like the culmination of me actually, yeah, building strength, endurance, the mental fortitude to do it, and also just being better at planning. Lots of admin stuff that I'm not great, but I'm definitely much better than I was. And the desert was was really, really hard. I wasn't prepared for it, and I struggled to finish it, to be honest. There were a couple of days where I thought, I'm done. Yeah, and looking back, it's because it was all new and I didn't know what I was doing.
Anyway, I think I said before we started recording that I don't want to get drawn too much into talking about the whole
Yes.
global series. Like we're going to do a separate episode on that. Um, let's concentrate on the jungle then. There's a mix in the jungle. I know some people might go out there expecting to sort of step into David Attenborough's territory immediately and be there for the whole 5 days. Of course, we may well not get anyone out the other side if you were constantly in the thickest jungle, but there's still plenty of it, and it's
Yeah.
tough. And even the areas that are out in the open, you're exposed to that heat and that humidity and the sunlight when it's sunny, or you're getting pounded by rain. There's sort of no part of that race seems to take it easy on you. Doesn't look particularly hilly. It's not the mountain one, but there's big lumps everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
how did you find it? What kind of weather did you get this year? And you're going to have to fill me in there because I wasn't there this time around. And what are the particular challenges of being out there in the jungle?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, we were incredibly lucky with the weather. So, I think
Mm.
from what I gather, we had the best run at it. There's very little rain. It was still muddy in quite large sections.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, compared to previous years, I think we had a pretty quick year. We had a lot of finishes in our year as well. So, I think that was primarily because the conditions were favorable and also
I would
because we
have
were a
to
very
say at that
close
point,
knit group.
Chris King has been very clear that it was that. Yeah, Chris King has been
Yeah, it
very
was
clear
that. I
that
mean,
you
what
guys were
was
just a really tight group.
a really tight group, and I think that really helped a lot of people to push through. And yeah, I know of some years, I've spoken to lots of people who have done this event, including John Shield, who obviously, he helps coach me, and Rusty, another person that I'm sure you're aware of that's completed the series. So I had lots
Oh
of
yeah.
intel. I know in previous years, people had very bad feet issues and trench foots and um, also the kind of really steep sections being virtually unrunnable and sliding around. That was still very much the case, but I think we probably had it slightly easier in that respect, which meant it was a quicker race, which was fun for me. I absolutely loved the jungle sections. For me, if I could have had a full 5 days immersed in the jungle, I like it slow, I like it painful. And all those adventure bits, that's really what I'm all about. The first 2 days there were more road sections, and we had a couple of very quick road runners, so I hated that. And it was quite difficult for me to keep up. But when it got humid, when we had, to a point, quite hilly sections, a lot of technical terrain, um, all of the wildlife as well, to your point, ants everywhere and mosquitoes and everything trying to get you, basically. It was that stuff that I just felt like this is why I'm here. It's the Amazon jungle. So I wanted the Amazon experience and very much felt like I got that.
Yeah, you really do, don't you? And what did you make a stage for? Because it sounds like that will have been a playground for you.
It was absolutely a playground. It was also hell at the same time. So it's one of those wonderful combinations of just like pure agony and awe as well. So I loved the lull. I thought it was uh, maybe the best stage that I've done in any of the BTU events. To your point, it felt like there's a giant jungle assault course. I thought the trees in the way, and you're climbing, you're going through rivers, and the humidity was really bad that day, and I really struggled in sections to keep on going. But that is what it's all about, right? It's those moments of things being so hard you think you can't do it, and then you manage to actually do it. There was a really good moment as well that really summed it up for me. And I was really dehydrated, and I got my hydration completely wrong on that stage in particular. And Chris King told us that at the top of the climb, which is a pretty big climb in the lull,
Yeah.
there is a bottle of water for everyone to help themselves to. And I really needed it. Got to the top of this hill, and there I found this bottle, and there were fat, huge bees, bigger bees than I've ever seen in my life, all over the bottle. And as soon as I tried to get anywhere near it, they literally a swarm of bees chased me. So it was like the Hunger Games where I could see the prize, and there was no chance of me getting anywhere near it. So I had a little bit of anger, and then I just laughed because it was like, yeah, this is what it's all about, right? It is nature, and we're here to do hard things. So I'll have some water later.
I mean, that's incredible. That's a first. I haven't heard that before. You were chased away from the water drop by bees. That
Yeah,
is very Hunger Games. But as you say, it's a thing that I've heard Chris mention in his pre-race briefings a few times that we're not in charge around here. We maintain the course as best we can, but we are absolutely not in charge out there, and you can't be. And we do our best, but that's all any of us are doing. And you got to see that. You got to
really
see that
did,
close up.
really did.
Wow. Um, Now let's talk a little bit here. And I'm thinking here about the people who will be listening to this because they're going to do the Jungle Ultra themselves, or maybe they're just trying to glean some info out of you for any of the races you've done since you've now proved yourself to be a successful athlete in all number of extreme conditions. Um, is there anything that you do specifically in your training geared towards these type of events? Because whatever it is you do between events, it seems to be working, Ben. What would you recommend people focus on when they're trying to prepare themselves for this?
I've learned a lot over the years. So the days that I did no heat training, for example, which was stupid, and it took me, probably 4 days to actually get used to the heat. In the jungle, it was very different, right? So I think I've learned that first and foremost, each environment needs to be respected, and there's an element of specialized training that comes with that. So again, I was very fortunate to work with John Shields for this event, and my training was pretty honed to the jungle. There was a lot of focus on hills, making sure that I was good on both up hills and down because it's pretty tough, especially stage one, going down the course for quite a long period of time, and it burns your quads. So I was pretty strong physically. I did a lot of gym work as well. This event was very well suited to me because I'm a bit of an all rounder, I guess. That I like strength and conditioning as well as running and hiking. Um, and for me, again, like if you look at the jungle, you need to be good. I think in the heat and the humidity as well. So and also altitude to an extent. So I did a small amount of altitude training. I did loads of heat training in humidity as well. So I think it was a combination of looking at all the different factors of the race, including on top of that all of the admin stuff, right? So I really focused on making sure my pack was right. I had a very light pack for this event, which was really helpful, so I could run properly. And I was more focused on the details than I have been in previous events. So specialized training, respecting the terrain, making sure that I was looking after the smaller details with the admin, which again is not natural to me. And sometimes I'm probably a bit too relaxed when it comes to those details.
You know what? This is all really good stuff to hear. There, I still hear it quite a lot, and I've been hearing it for years from way back to my first experiences. That running these kind of events is 90% mental. If you're resilient enough up here, you'll be able to push through anything. And I would say to you that anybody who's trying to tell you that before they start the jungle has never experienced what 100% humidity feels like 4 days into a race, or has never had to try and sort their hammock out in pouring rain. You better know how to do that. It better be muscle memory. You better have at least got an idea of what it feels like to be that hot and that caked in sweat and mud. You maybe can't spend, the fortnight in a heat chamber it might require to completely acclimatize, but you've got to at least know how it feels and how it's going to affect your kit, how much nutrition and liquid you can get in, and everything else. And that's always going to stand you in good stead. It's really good to hear that you were that kind of detail oriented on the running. Yeah, is there anything else you learned from the sort of jungle specifically? Any particular bit of kit you're really really glad you took along with you?
Anything specific? I would say, well, first of all, some of the hammocks people had was brilliant. So, uh, there are good hammocks and there are not so good hammocks, right? And for me, I think the Hennessy hammock is great. I went for the ultralight, which is ultralight, as the name suggests. And some people were carrying a lot of stuff, and I wouldn't say there was anything specific I learned other than things I've already mentioned, right? That I was really focused on making sure that my pack was going to be as light as possible whilst maintaining enough calories, which is quite a difficult balance. Um, yeah, and I think just what I've learned as well to enjoy it. I know it sounds really flippant almost, but um, I find that when I'm relaxed about things and I'm taking everything in, I can also push myself and hopefully get reasonable results. But these things are for me, they're about the adventure and about the experience, and it's a once in a lifetime. So I found myself really enjoying looking forward to the day, and yeah, each start of the stage, I was raring to go, and I think having that mentality has always worked for me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great advice. Whichever of the races you're going into, remember you're somewhere unique and amazing that you might only be once and where not that many people have trodden before. And try and remember to enjoy yourself, even if you are covered in ants and your stomach's starting to growl a little suspiciously. It's
Exactly.
still something you're never going to go through again. That's wonderful. And just to sort of speak to your win here a little bit, because I just think that's great. And I'm sad that I wasn't there in the jungle because I always am. It's beautiful out there, but particularly not to see the end of your series, your global race experience. You've gone all the way through the lot now. How were you feeling going in the jungle? Did you have it in mind that maybe I want to go out on a win here? Were you pushing for that specifically?
Being honest, I was. And after the mountains, it was a pretty good field. There were some really good athletes in that field,
Yeah.
and I didn't train particularly well. I was there to enjoy it, and a few people mentioned that if I trained properly, I could probably be quite competitive. So I had that on my mind when I started the training. Again, I spoke to John Shields, who I think is the course record holder in the jungle. But anyway, he certainly won the event previously. Um, and we put together a plan with certainly getting to a podium spot was the plan. And I really wanted to your point, end the series on a high and really see what I can do if I actually focus and give everything to the event, because it's always for me, again, it's been about a fun experience before. And I've never, probably in my life, gone to that length to try and win something. So it was the plan, and it was a stretch goal to win it, but I was really hopeful that I'd get on the podium.
I'm so happy for you, mate. That's incredible to hear. And I mean, if you're wanting to go for the podium, you're going to call John Shield for your training, right? He he's just been out there punching all the global race series in the face as he goes through. I don't know what we'd have to do to stop him, but this was all you. And I love it when somebody crosses the finish line as a winner, and it was maybe a bit of a surprise. They hadn't realized they were going to do so well, but it means so much more when you put yourself out there. You put yourself on the line a bit. You'd said to yourself, "I'm really going to go for this," and that does put a lot on the line emotionally, mentally, and you got it. You got vindication for all that sacrifice and all that training. So well done, man. I think that's absolutely amazing. Um, it, difficult to pick it out across the whole event. And I'm including everything here from like the minute you set foot in Cusco, which is just such a wonderful city. What are your highlights? Are there a memory or two of your experience in the jungle that just are going to be stuck in there for life?
There are so many highlights. I mean, Cusco itself is fantastic, by the way. I love that place and had a proper vibe to it. I think when I look back at the jungle experience now, it has been a few weeks. I mean, first of all, I think just the way the course is created, and I understand it's, it's all carved out of the jungle, and I think there are less than 100 people that have been into that area of the jungle before. So that alone for me was incredibly special because it felt like a really unique experience that, it was a very intimate thing where only a few of us were getting to see this part of the world. So I absolutely loved that. And I think also the tribes people. So there was a really good speech that I didn't really understand from the chief. Obviously, we had an interpreter, but he also myself and Noora, who won the women's event, we were lucky to get prizes. So I received a bow and arrow and a kind of Pocahontas style feather hat at the end, and that experience as well. I think the one thing I've loved about all the events actually is the local community being partnered with Beyond the Ultimate, and yeah, getting to be a really core part of that this time around. And again, that coupled with what is, I think, the most beautiful place in the world, arguably, um, and being really involved, in all the different physical ways with climbing and running and hiking and getting wet in the rivers and the zip wires. Again, it was nature's assault course, and everything
Yeah.
about that is just like I could do that forever.
Amazing. Well, look, I'll put in a word with Chris. Maybe we can get him to put another stage like that together somewhere else.
Here's
Um, oh, I Zoom. But yeah, look. In any case, it's been wonderful to chat to you about this, Ben. I hope I've been able to bring you back into the jungle bubble for a little while. Um, and yeah, thanks for talking to me, and congratulations once again, not only on doing so spectacularly well in the jungle, but on completing the entire global race series. You have conquered so many extreme environments and so many kilometers now. So just well done, mate. Outstanding.
Thank you very much for the kind words, and it's been loads of fun catching up and reminiscing about the experience. So I really appreciate your time. Thanks, Will.
Good morning, then, to Gemma Harding. Gemma, it's a pleasure to meet you. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, how are you?
Very well, thank you. You've got a much more picturesque backdrop than I've got going on at the moment. Whereabouts are you sitting for this interview?
I'm on the top of my farm trying to get some decent signal. So yeah, just sitting in the field.
Well, thanks for taking the trek out there. It's appreciated. Also, that was some great visual content there for the people who are listening to this on Spotify. Apologies to them. We've come today to talk about your Jungle Ultra experience, and I'm excited to talk to you about this because this isn't a case of chatting to a ultra runner who's been through this before and been there and got the t-shirt. You were coming into this fresh, right? This is not only your first ultra, but only just a little way after your first marathon as well. So it, I imagine it's quite a short story knowing this, but how did you get to be on that start line? What was your journey from point A to point B there?
I like big challenges. Um, I had a big accident quite a long time ago, but it's left me uh just liking to push my body and see where I can get to. And I um was looking for something. Normally they come to me, normally people say, "Oh, do you want to do this?" I say yes, and then shit myself a little bit afterwards and go, "Oh, how am I going to be ready for that?" And figure it out. But this, I heard Chris talking to Fergus Crawley on a podcast, and it
Ah,
was just yeah, I was just randomly listening to it. Nothing, just I like the Fergus podcasts. Um, and he started talking about the jungle, and something in me just said, I need to do it. Like, this is it. This is the challenge. I've got to do it. But at that stage, I couldn't run more than 3K without like acute knee pain. Um, and for a couple of years, I've been saying to my physio that I wanted to do 100K, and we both laughed. Um, and I'd like start training, hit a wall, not be able to break like 3K even, and give up. I tried multiple times, and then this jungle came up, and I was just like, do you know what? I'll enter it and then I'll just figure it out. It'll make me find a way. So
What?
yeah.
And it did, from what I can see on paper. So you were saying that previously you couldn't get beyond the sort of 3K point without this knee pain. So what is it that got you past that point this time around? What's opened up the next 227K, as it was in the case of the Jungle Ultra?
It was a complete mindset shift. My partner is military and he started training me. And within one run, I started to see walking as part of the strategy, not failure. So like walk before I needed to, even if it's 100 meters, and then run again, walk all the hills. And that first run, I was like, oh, that was like to start with, I was like, distance, rubbish, what are we doing? Like, I need to run. And then suddenly by the end, I'd done 10K and I was like, actually, walking is not the devil. And yeah, so a huge amount of my training was pure walking. And yeah, just walk, run. That was it. Not feeling like not letting my ego take control of my training.
Perfect. Now, ultimately, somebody let you in on the big secret in ultra running, which is that for most of us, it means not doing all that much actual running. That a purposeful hike is just as, if not more, effective at times, especially for you. And I think that's wonderful. Maybe we've found your sporting corner here. I can't imagine that came without any discomfort, though. Is it still? Yeah, I mean, physically, how tough was it for you to then push all the way through a 5-day race in the Amazon rainforest?
It actually, for me, the first 2 days were the hardest by far. Day two, physically and mentally, nearly broke me. And at one point, I did think I was like, "This is where I bow out. Like, this is it for me." Um, there was quite more road than expected on day two because they'd had a landslide in the jungle. So
Mm.
we did a lot on road, and it took its toll on my knee. Even though I was strategically walking, it's like walk, run, and then I was just purely walking. But like at one point, I genuinely thought, I'm out. Like this is me done. And it was like, fortunately, I like hobbled on for another kilometer, and then we turned off the road. And it eased up. I carried on walking, and it was it's a long time to be walking on your own,
Mm.
like completely alone. I just didn't see anyone. And mentally, that was really tricky. But then we went into day three when we went into the jungle, and I just literally didn't stop smiling. Like that was, yeah, it was incredible hitting the jungle properly.
Oh,
And it really hit me. And then I was away. Some people came through like mentally a bit shell shocked and a bit sort of like, that was horrendous. That was so hard. And I was just like, that was amazing. Like it was hard, but in a really, really good way. I loved sort of how much how physical it was in every way. There was a lot of climbing over logs, under logs, through rivers. It was quite technical, and yeah, I just thrive in that kind of environment. Um, and it mentally, it's great because you've got so much to think about that the distance passes much quicker mentally because you're kind of constantly seeing where your feet are or not putting your hands on ants because there are ants everywhere. Um,
everywhere.
everywhere. And you literally just brush something and you're covered in them. So yeah, that was probably the worst thing. There was a lot of swearing about the ants. Um, but yeah, I would
Yeah.
say uh, day four was probably my favorite day. Um, like even on day five, the big hill through the jungle, like that, my favorite part of day five. So yeah.
No, that's wonderful. I'm really glad to hear that you made it there and you got to experience it, and it was what you expected it to be, and that's absolutely wonderful. It seems, overly glib and a bit of a generalization to try and draw your sort of outdoorsy livelihood into this as well. But obviously, spending a lot of time in the outdoors is something that you're pretty familiar with. Do you think there's any advantage in that, or you're particularly drawn to these sort of adventurous challenges as a consequence of it? And I suppose you should say at this point what it is you actually do.
Yeah. I'm a farmer and I think it fully sets you up because you expect the unexpected farming. No day's the same. Like you have to deal with whatever's put in front of you. You're constantly on rough terrain. Like crawling through the jungle was not a big deal for me because I've crawled through hedges. I've rescued sheep out of lakes, out of rivers, down holes. So yeah, it kind of, I think it definitely sets you up. And I think I was lambing in like March, April. So I was doing maybe 20 to 30K a day on foot, just walking. I didn't have time to run at all. But I think that time on feet and that hiking, and I have a fast walk, like I power, um, and I like almost accelerate uphill. So that I think was incredible training, invaluable. At the time, Chris would say like, "You're doing loads," and I was panicking that I wasn't going to be ready. But actually, he was obviously right. He knows what he's talking about. He was right. It was really, really good training. Just being on rough ground, on your feet all day, often carrying stuff.
Absolutely.
So
I
yeah,
can imagine how, from your point of view, that just felt like, well, I'm just at work. This is just my day to day. I'm not training at this point. But inadvertently, you were doing exactly what I've heard Chris say to other runners over and over again, which is, get used to carrying some weight, get used to being out on difficult terrain for long, long hours, back to back days. It's all about time on feet and mixing your training up. And there was you out there lifting lambs through mud and hedges to get yourself ready for the Jungle Ultra. And it
uh,
obviously paid off. Second female, it's an incredible result for your first time at this distance.
yeah, like shocking. I wasn't expecting that at all. My aim was just to finish. Like that was all. I just wanted to get to the end, and I was very determined that I was going to. But I had absolutely until like stage 5. I knew I was in third, and it did ignite a little bit of sort of competitive spirit in me. But I was just happy to have finished it, completed. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. I've got to ask then. We know it was tough, but you'd inadvertently trained yourself to be the perfect Jungle Ultra runner while you were out there on the farm. What did you enjoy? What are some of the standout memories from the Jungle Ultra?
Um, the jungle itself, like the first time you properly on stage 3, the first time we really got into jungle, that was yeah pretty phenomenal. And we were set off in waves, um, and I was in the first wave, and I kind of felt a little bit like in my head I was being hunted by the waves behind, and I was out the front, and I really enjoyed that feeling actually of like feeling hunted. I don't know why, but sort of trying to stay ahead and then expecting to get caught and expecting and not until eventually Ben, who won it, did catch me. But then I was just like, yeah, fair play. Um, the team spirit of everyone, I think, is something that was really special because it's a relatively small group. You get to know each other and everyone really supports each other and wants everyone to do well. You want everyone to finish. It's not, it's, there is competition between the top runners, but it's a really friendly competition and supportive competition. Um, and the organization, like how it was run, was incredible. I can't fault sort of everything about it. The medics, the team on the ground there, like the Peruvians, how the trails were marked, how we were looked after, but how we were made to look after ourselves. Like it's self-supported, so they guide you, but actually you are made to do it for yourself.
I guess one thing I've got to ask then is having put yourself through it now, having got through all that admin and all those 230 kilometers, would you do this again? Have you got another big adventure in mind now? Have we created an ultra runner in you?
Yes. I thought I might hate running by the end of it. I thought this might be the one and only, but I've entered 100K in October, just locally. And then I wouldn't go back necessarily to the jungle because I feel like I got everything I went for out of that race. Um, and it is a long way to go, but I feel like I couldn't improve on that in any way. The whole experience was incredible, and I do it for the experience, not not for the medal. Um, but I am hoping to do the mountains next year.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's my next.
Well, absolutely
But
incredible. And I have
yeah,
no
it's
doubt you'll
definitely.
be as successful there as you were in the jungle as well. We might need to find you some slightly taller and sharper lumps to go up and down than what you've got on the farm, but I imagine you'll find a way.
We went to Scotland. My partner and I went to Scotland a weekend before last, and I persuaded him to stop in the Cairngorms so I could do a few hills there, just as a bit of a. But I get really bad vertigo sometimes. It's to do with my ears, and that is something I'm going to have to really figure out because obviously mountains are, going to be a problem. So yeah, it's not going to be without its challenges.
Yeah, true. But I get the impression there aren't a lot of challenges that stand in your way, Gemma. But also, I did say before we started recording this, you were running this for charity, and I want to give you the opportunity to talk about that a little. I will obviously drop a link to your charity in the description below this podcast as well for anybody listening. So, yeah, who are you running in support of?
Rock to Recovery, they support serving and veterans of like all our emergency services and armed forces. And it's not just for those who have served, but also for their families, which I think is key because often it's the families that um, suffer as much, with the stress. So they've really helped. They've helped me. They've helped a number of people that I know, like really, really changed their lives. So um, it's a really worthy cause.
Wow, amazing. I'm all up for anybody going out and doing something wonderful and adventurous, but doing it for a good cause is even cooler. So I'm glad you got to talk about that. And as I say, description, have a look at the description below, and I'll make sure there's a link down there. It just remains to ask then, if there's anyone else out there listening to this thinking, well, maybe I could just sign up for this big 5 day race. Maybe I can just sign up for an adventure and figure out the kinks along the way. Is there a particular lesson you've learned or a particular thing you did in training that worked out that you would advise those people to focus on?
Um, I think if you want it enough, you'll do it. And it is, yes, you've got to be fit for these things, but it's so mental. Like it's just keeping putting one foot in front of the other. And it's as simple as that. It's just keeping going. And I think you'll never like you will underestimate how much the atmosphere and the people around you keep you going as well. Um, yeah, like there were people from all different backgrounds, experiences, and nearly everyone made it to the end. And it was incredible to see, and it was really inspiring to see people battling different things on different days and coming through stronger and finishing. So uh, I think anyone's capable of doing it. You don't have to go to win. Um, it just
Yeah.
it's it is just kind of being determined enough. If you want it enough, um, you'll get there.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Those are exactly the kind of inspiring words I wanted to leave this on. Yeah, if you're listening to this and you want to go to the jungle next year, sign up for the jungle next year and you will figure it out along the way if you want it bad enough. I think
And
that's
you will regret
absolutely
it.
true. Yeah.
That's that's it. It's the experience of a lifetime.
Amazing. Well, look, Gemma, I'm going to let you get back to work. It's been absolutely delightful to speak to you this morning, and I'm so pleased you had that amazing jungle ultra experience. It was no less than you deserved.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, then, Mark Reilly. Mark, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm great. Well, lovely to meet you.
Yeah, you too. It's always nice chatting to runners where I haven't actually been to the event. This is us meeting for the first time live, not quite live, but here on the podcast. So, how are you doing now? It's been a few weeks since the Jungle Ultra. Did you come back in one piece? You feeling recovered?
Yeah, just the legs are getting back to normal. Well, started training again. I think the issues for me were prior to the race, ended up ill just before the race. So after the race, I've actually recovered quite well. So yeah, no issues at all.
I, you say you were ill before the race. Do you mean before you flew out there, or you got ill in Peru?
No, I actually get ill the evening prior to day one, and it was about 8 o'clock in the evening. I was lying in my hammock and I felt the nausea coming on. And I think from about 8:30 onwards, I started having diarrhea, and then the vomiting started. So that didn't subside till about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning of the race. So I was a bit concerned. I didn't know whether I would make the start line. Took a few, I think I took 4 Imodium and I had a few Dioralytes. Um, Thankfully, the vomiting stopped around about 5 o'clock-ish. So I was able to make the start line at 7 o'clock for the start of the race. Obviously, a bit weak, not feeling great. But thankfully, as the race went on, I got a bit stronger.
I'll move the conversation on slightly from your intestinal difficulties. That's not what I meant to focus on for the whole of the interview. You mentioned it was an incredible experience. What were a couple of the highlights for you then of 5 days racing through the jungle?
Well, there's so many highlights. I think if I probably had to pick one, I think, as you know, with these races, you spend quite a lot of time isolated running by yourself on occasions. The long day, day 5, was a special one for me because I managed to run the full stage with Ben Harrison, who went on to win the race. Myself and Ben were both trained by John Shield, who I believe won it in 2022.
Yeah,
So
I know John.
I'd connected with Ben prior to the race through WhatsApp. Ben was obviously leading the race, and I was sitting in 3rd place going into the last day. So we decided to run it together, and that was special because the 70 odd kilometres flew by. I think it was 11 hours we did, and it felt like about 3 hours. The company was so good, and it was lovely to finish in such a long stage, being able to chat to someone all the way through, and obviously someone help you along the way, be running alongside you and keeping you going. And then we caught up with Stefan, who finished second. I think it was about 10k to go. We caught him, and the 3 of us ran in together. So it was lovely for the 3 podium guys at 1, 2, and 3 to cross the line together. It can epitomise the camaraderie, not just between the 3 of us, but between all the runners and even the BTU team. It was fantastic camaraderie. I think that epitomised it. The 3 of us crossing the line together. It was fantastic. So I'd say that was my highlight of the race, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, you highlighted it yourself there, didn't you? That really does speak to the level of camaraderie there. You've got 3 runners at the very sharp end of the race, just decided to form up at that point and enjoy it. Now, I think that's absolutely wonderful. But also, I think you might be the first person I ever spoke to that has described stage 5 of that race as having gone by like that. Like, generally, what we're hearing is grumbles about how many kilometers are left. Oh, you really sounds like you thrived out there. What did you make of the terrain and the scenery?
Yeah, I mean, Chris has put a fantastic route together. I mean, it really does challenge you. The scenery was absolutely stunning, and the route was very, very challenging. I mean, day 5, for example, there were so many different aspects to the route. I think we started in the road, ended up about a trail, and then I think it was about 12 kilometres through the river with, it was kind of mossy rocks underfoot, which made it really treacherous and slippy. I think I must have fell about half a dozen times. I think Ben picked me up out from underneath the water, I don't know how many times. And then track, and then the big hill, and then back to road again. So yeah, it was fantastic, really challenging. But yeah, as you touched on, the scenery was sensational.
And what was the sort of toughest aspect to the race for you? What did you find difficult out there?
I think different days provided different challenges. Obviously, the first 2 days for myself, I was probably a little bit stronger in the road. So the first day would really have suited me, but because I was ill the first day, I took it easy. So that was challenging for me for the way I was actually feeling. As the race went on, with day 3, I think I remember the hills really started kicking in, and day 4 was obviously the lull. The infamous lull was incredibly challenging. Just the heat and humidity. I think it was a bit drier this year than maybe previous years, which maybe increased the heat and humidity a bit. So I really felt that in day 4 going up the big hill, and then obviously that hill was it was monstrous, as Chris described it, as undulating, more like vertical, as everybody laughs, you know. So there was so many different challenges every day. It was, as I say, he's put a fantastic route together that really does push you to your limits. Yeah, it was so challenging and tough, but absolutely fantastic to finish it.
Yeah, you definitely get a sense of achievement after that one. And yeah, I think you've just written the marketing for it as well. I'm sure your description there will sell it to plenty of people. Um, Now, obviously, this is a bit of a change for you. You are the first former professional footballer I've ever spoken to on the podcast, so that's amazing, and a cup winner, no less, which is absolutely astonishing. What, without having the whole lot of last 20 years of your life laid out, when did you transition from the one to the other? And do you think your sort of background in that professional sport has helped you adapt to the training that comes with ultra running?
Yeah, initially, don't mention the cup final. Well, Cammy for the BTU team will fall out and make us he's a big Falkirk fan, and that's who we beat in the final. So, so we'll need to skip by that one.
Right.
Yeah, I retired in 2006 after 21 years playing football, and I probably had a break of about a few years. And it was my daughter Dion was born in 2008, and she's got a disability called Rett syndrome. So I think that kind of gave me the push to start running again, and I transitioned into various events, culminating in the Jungle Ultra. To answer your question about the footballing background, I think it does help you. I think going back to the days when I played mainly in the 80s, 90s, and then into the 2000s, particularly at the start, for example, pre-season training was 2 weeks of running until you were sick every day. So that feeling of waking up tired every single morning in a multi-stage event and your body's aching, you don't feel good, you don't feel fresh, you've got to get going again. So I think football does prepare you for that feeling, especially the physical and mental tiredness that you experience in the multi-stage event. So as a footballer through training, as I say, especially going back to those eras when there was no sports science, it certainly stood me in good stead, I think.
Yeah, I bet. Just run till you throw up for a few days in a row. I imagine they do things a little bit differently now, but that is pretty much maybe not the run till you throw up aspect of it, but you've hit the nail on the head there for what we advise people who are talking about how to go about training for these things for the first time. To get out there, have a long day, and then get up and go at it again. Even if you are feeling rough, even if it has left you feel tired, because that is what you're going to go through while you're out there. Oh, especially you, if you happen to get yourself ill just before it as well. Um, and what about sort of mentally? Obviously, you've been in a professional sport and environment here where you've been under a lot of pressure at times, no doubt. I mean, we've already mentioned the cup final in there. Are there some sort of psychological aspects of your former professional training that help out in an ultra environment?
Yeah, I think mentally it does prepare you. I think especially these events, even myself, for example, sometimes when you played professional sport, it doesn't always go the way you want it to go, and you have to maybe resort to a plan B. You might have an injury, you might start the game and play through the injury, and you might have to adapt. And I think that's very much what ultra running as well, and in particular the jungle. You might come into it with a game plan, but you might have to adapt that game plan, as we've just spoke about, as I had to do in day one, to get through the race. And I think you're going to have good days, bad days, good moments, bad moments. And I think it's just about working through that. And I think mentally and physically, kind of my previous career has definitely helped me along that with that, to get through it, set it out.
Well, without potentially upsetting any Kilmarnock fans out there, how does crossing the finish line after 5 days of being battered in the jungle compare with winning a cup as a professional footballer?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, totally different. I think
Yeah.
you're well aware of cup final. You know, it's a team event, and you're making so many people happy. I think there was like 50,000 at the open bus parade through the town. So the satisfaction is similar to both. Obviously, you've got one team event and the other one's individual, and you're doing it for yourself. And I think kind of me doing it in my mid-50s as well, being able to complete the jungle, which is no mean feat because it is such a tough race, is incredibly satisfying and rewarding. So yeah, kind of similar in both ways, but different in a lot of other ways as well. So really difficult to answer it. Both in their own kind of unique way were special moments.
I mean, thanks for making a really good answer there out of what was a fairly stupid question, but it's much appreciated. And look, not going to take up too much more of your time, but you mentioned your daughter then, and you've done quite a few of these sort of running challenges now. I believe you were running this one for charity, so it would be remiss of me not to ask you about that now, so we can make sure we've got a link below for people to go and donate if they want to. So, could you tell us a little bit about the charity and maybe sort of what other events you've done in support of it?
Yeah, so my daughter's got a condition called Rett syndrome, which is it's a rare condition. Rett syndrome has been reversed, in the lab in 2007. So they reckon it will be the first neurological condition that they find a cure for. But as I say, all funding is private because there is no lottery or government money goes towards it. So I've been kind of raising money for the charity Reverse Rate, and it's just Matt Reilly Just Giving page. And yeah, I've done several events. Started off kind of low key in every event. I've tried to make it tougher and tougher. So I went from the Three Peaks Challenge to Ironman events. I've done the Marathon des Sables, and certainly I would say the jungle's been the toughest one so far. I've done 100-mile runs around the football grounds of the teams I played for in Scotland as well, under 24 hours. So,
Amazing.
yeah, done a few events, but yeah, jungle without doubt is my favourite.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about the Jungle Ultra.
No, I thoroughly enjoyed it, Will, and thanks again for having me on. And just remember and edit the cup bit for Cammy.
No promises. Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Will.